worst case scenario, and your video slot will just be a hilarious picture of you.
Yes.
Welcome to the Nasty Labs podcast, part of the Greenlit Podcast Network. We're the podcast from game studio Chuhai Labs, where we talk about games, game dev Japan, and whatever else comes up. And as always, we're your hosts, Kinsey and Mark. So open yourself up at Chuhai and let's go.
What is up, Kinsey? Today is there was a lot of flubs in that intro, and I fucking loved it. It's great to see you. Today we've got a fantastic special guest, Chris Kohler. How the hell are you, Chris?
I am the hell great. Thank you. It's nice to see you guys virtually. Haven't seen you in real life in a really long time, and hope to see you in real life one day soon. But for now, I'll have to content myself with this podcast and, sort of looking across the internet waves at your faces once more.
Chris, what have you been up to? What's in the life of Chris Kohler?
Well, I mean, so about a year and a half ago now, I decided to take the 25-year career in media that I had so carefully built up and throw it all straight into the garbage.
The dumpster.
And start anew, living the life of a game developer now. I'm working at a Digital Eclipse, actually, which is out here in Northern California in Emeryville. And so far, we have the first thing I worked on that shipped was I did the museum for Blizzard Arcade Collection with the Lost Vikings and Blackthorn, and thank you, and Rock and Roll Racing. That was a lot of fun. And then worked a little bit on working on the script and the writing for Space Jam: A New Legacy, the official tie-in game, a beat-em-up in the style of Final Fight and other such classic 16-bit beat-em-ups that I was happy to edit the script and write a whole bunch of jokes for. That was amusing.
Hell yeah.
I got to write jokes for Space Jam?
I got to write jokes for Space Jam. I should get a little badge made that's like I got to write jokes for fake LeBron James and Bugs Bunny and everything. I got Bugs Bunny to, I was like, oh, I know what I want to do. And I had Bugs Bunny walk on screen and be like, hey, it smells like Up-Doc in here. And had it was right before a boss fight, and had the boss like, "What's up, Doc?" And I mean, I was so happy with that.
Wait, you had the boss named Up?
No, the boss. No,
because that would have
try to follow along, Mark. Can you please try to stay on track here?
Have you met Bugs Bunny before? He's got a catchphrase.
This was the first time that I had written something like that and put it out into the world, and so I just watched every streamer who streamed this game, and I watched them in particular when they were watching the cutscenes, because I was like, well, what's the reaction gonna be? Because you don't really know. And there was one guy who the stream started up, and he kind of saw the punchline, and he was like, fuck you, Bugs. And I was like, yes! It was a great
Nailed
moment.
It.
I did, yes, felt great. But yeah, the team that put that game together, oh my God, it was a small team of people. Again, my role was really, more limited to the writing, but the team that built it was just incredible. It was so much fun to work with them. And then by the time that this podcast is released, everybody should have been able to play Game 3. Disney Classic Games Collection, which there was an older version that we did a couple of years ago with Genesis, Aladdin, and then Super Nintendo Aladdin and Lion King. Genesis, Aladdin, then Super Nintendo and Genesis Lion King. And now the new version has Super NES and Genesis Jungle Book added in, and then also the much requested Capcom's Super NES version of Aladdin is also in there as well.
Holy shit.
Going from 3 games to 6 games, and then a whole new Jungle Book museum section that I put together. And so that's can't wait for everybody to get to see that. So that's so things. Yes, the answer to your question is things are great, and that's what I'm up to these days. Yeah.
And here's my follow-up question.
Yes.
You've come from 25 years of journalism. Why do you want to jump out? Why do you throw it into the dumpster fire?
It's a long story, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on there.
I have time.
Okay, sure. I mean, for me, it was getting a little bit, I think, worried about the future of that traditional media space, and what kind of growth opportunities there were going to be for me in that space, just because there's just not a whole lot of, once you keep climbing up the ranks, there's not a whole lot of positions there. And you have people like, look at like Per Schneider at IGN. I mean, he's somebody who was there since the N64 days, and he's still, at the kind of at the tippity top of the mountain there. But like positions of that sort are very few and far between. And whereas I think that there was more growth potential and just the possibility of doing something new and maybe getting to really build something new and exciting on the game development side, which is, whereas media is just sort of in trouble right now, game development, if anything, is just vibrant and things are really great, economically. And then also just really wanting to go work with the people at Digital Eclipse who I've known for a long time, and was very excited to find that they felt that they had a position for me, that I could do. And just the fact that I could really take what I was passionate about, which was researching game history and writing about it, and take those skills and just sort of, very neatly transfer it into this unicorn of a role. Because I mean, Digital Eclipse, we create retro game collections, but we go so hard on the museum side, and there's so much to do, and there's so much that I can add to it. It just is like, yeah, this is a really good opportunity, and I think I'm going to take this. And it's been pretty wonderful so far. It's been very energizing, I think, to do something brand new for the first time in a long time as well. And so it's just been really great. Yeah, it's you give things up. It was a wonderful time that I spent at, when I was at Wired. I mean, that was like an incredible decade of, I just got to be the video games guy at Wired Magazine. And like, that means that every single opportunity that ever came up to, just to throw one thing out there, like every single time an opportunity came up to like sit down for an hour with Shigeru Miyamoto or whatever at E3 or wherever it was, I got to do that. And that's like a huge, and it's like, that was a amazing, decade of opportunities that are not as frequent in that space anymore. I think also because of the rise of, influencers, because like influencer is not a, as you well know, Kinsey, right? I mean, you've done so much on YouTube, and it's such a grind, and you can do it, and you can grind and grind and grind, it's the tip of the iceberg, right? Like, maybe 1% of people, not even 1% of people, it's like a percentage of a percent will hit the lottery and, become huge. And then everybody else, it's just you're going for this. It's not something that you can say like, I'm gonna put in the work and get a position as an influencer. You know what I mean? So you can be incredible and incredibly talented, and so it's just very difficult to get there. And so just when you see kind of like the shifts and things like that, it's like, it was a totally different. When I started in 1996, things are completely different. And again, much love to all the people that are doing it and working at it right now. You know what I mean? I now read gaming news, and it's like, I need you folks out there. And people are really trying to do the hard work, and there's great rewards to doing great things. It's just like, for me personally, I looked at this and thought, I think this is where I want to be personally now. Family, kids, quite frankly, just more stability, because even if the job is going incredibly well, there is always, I think, in the media, the sword of Damocles over your head that any day you might wake up and get laid off. Now, this happens in video game development as well, but I think the places you could potentially go, are a little bit, options are a little bit more open, if that were to happen. So that, again, maybe a more long-winded answer than you were looking for, but it's, so much of it is just considering where I am and what my priorities are and why am I working and, what is all this for and all that kind of stuff.
Totally, yeah. It's awesome, though, to, like, have a career that long and be able to morph it in something, like, that is, right up there with all of your passions and this kind of the same but different in a way. You're still, like, writing about games, and it's a really cool way to, like, transform those skills that you already had.
It's yeah, and instead of doing like a couple articles a day or whatever it is, I just put out one really big feature, every game, that comes out, and get a ton of time to work on it and tweak it and polish it. So yeah, it's like, I'm incredibly lucky. You kidding me? I've fallen into a tub of butter, as they say.
Instead of several articles a day, it's a joke for Bugs Bunny.
It's a joke for... And I mean, to get to do that, it's like I got to work with, Warner Brothers characters. We're getting to work with Disney. It's like, it's just an exciting time and place to be, for sure.
Hell yeah.
And Blizzard.
And there needs to be a boss called Updoc. I'm just saying.
You're right back on this. You're trying to turn your misunderstanding of the situation like into an I meant to
I like
do
that
that.
you think that I misunderstood it.
Like
Of course I did.
All right, everybody. This episode is going to be a little bit different, and since we're now in 2022, we're hoping that Japan is going to be that much closer to opening up to tourists, and I know a lot of our listeners are, like, frequently go to Japan, or that's a dream vacation they're hoping to do soon, or something. So we thought we would do kind of a all-Japan bonanza with games and travel and all the things that all three of us love. So, number one reason why we invited Mr. Chris Kohler, because this is the perfect topic. So instead of our traditional What Up, where we talk about what we're currently playing, we are each going to talk about an import game that we love. And it can be for any reason. It doesn't even matter. This is a very loosey-goosey category.
Well, Kinsey, this is your topic. I think you should start it, and then we throw the long-winded over to Chris.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
It took me a while to, like, think of what to say for this because, like, a couple years ago I did start collecting imports, and I have, like, a Sailor Moon collection and a Magic Knight Rares collection because I was a gigantic weeb in high school, and I am reliving that, and it is fantastic. But I think what I'm going to do is, well, number one, the best cover art for a Japanese retro game is Mischief Makers / Troublemakers. I don't know what it is on the N64. I absolutely love that cover art because it's so simple. It's like Morena, like, holding up all the shit. And I don't know why I like it so much, but every time I think of, like, what import game do I love? And I'm like, well, that one. I'm like, well, it's not. I mean, it came out here, but damn that cover art.
Well, it's the classic, like, Street Fighter thing where all the Japanese Street Fighter games are, like, these gorgeous sort of, like, montages of full-on face portraits of the characters.
Yeah.
Because it's about the characters and the story, whereas in the U.S., they had to redo all of those box arts because, like, if you don't show somebody explicitly punching someone in the face, it's like, they're just like, how are they going to know it's a fighting game?
Right. They're like, they're obviously going to think it's boring if someone's not being punched.
Yep.
So, I mean, but for the most part, Japanese box art is almost always better than all others. And I was trying to think of a retro game or a Japanese retro game to talk about, and I think I'm honestly going to go with a classic of Mario and Wario.
Ooh.
Because, like, it didn't come out here, and, like, it's a Super Nintendo mouse game, which we didn't get very many of those anyways. And I love when the Mario series kind of diverts a little bit. Like, I love the more puzzle-centric Mario games, like Mario vs. Donkey Kong and all the ones in, like, those other genres that aren't necessarily mainline Mario. And if you don't know what Mario and Wario is, it's a puzzle game that you use the mouse to, like, either, like, make platforms appear or disappear, and you're trying to, like, get Mario through a maze, basically. And Wario is a big dick, and he put a bucket on Mario's head so he can't see, and you have to help him.
It's Lemmings, but Mario's the only lemming. It's great.
I love it so much. It's so good.
Chris,
All right.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, okay, so if I were to plug the book that I wrote for Boss Fight Books, it was, which it was all about the Final Fantasy V. But the thing is, Final Fantasy V, it's not really, it's not an import anymore. I mean, they literally,
Right.
it spent way longer actually having an official release here than it did as an import-only game. It was only like 5 years or something like, or 7 years. So I will say, what has stayed as an import game and will never ever come, well, maybe, but like never ever come out here. My favorite is probably Ostatakai Oendan for the Nintendo DS, which was the original version of what became Elite Beat Agents for the DS in the US. Now, of course, I say that Elite Beat Agents is not a localized version of Ostatakai Oendan. It is very specifically a third entry in that series, which did not come out in Japan. It's a separate game. But Ostatakai Oendan, the original, is it's this wonderful music game. The gameplay is fantastic. It works great on the Nintendo DS. And also, what really keeps that one, I think, is the best of the three, the two Oendans that came out in Japan and then the Elite Beat Agents in the US, is the soundtrack on Oendan 1 is like greatest hits of Japan 1970 through 2000. I mean, it's incredibly good. I listened to the soundtrack. There's not a soundtrack. I listened to the fan-made soundtrack, which is just MP3s of all the original music, but I listen to it all the time. Every one of them's a fucking banger. It's like incredible. I highly recommend everybody play Oendan every day.
That's awesome. The DS had so many good, Japanese only titles. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I love the DS for import collecting.
I used to have when the DS was happening, that was when I was importing tons of stuff. Or even especially if I were to go to Tokyo Game Show, I'd bring back all kinds of cheap DS games because there were a ton of them. You could get them really cheaply, and they never came out here. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Mr. Lentz?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm surprised you didn't go with Final Fantasy V. I mean, I know you wrote a book about it, and also that was the first time I met you was at a book signing.
That's right.
I was pretty excited about that. I have good video of it. I still get butterflies and shit. And mine was the Bomberman series, the latter day Bomber, like a Bomberman 3 and 4 for the SNES, and because that was also around the time that I found illicit substances, and it turns out weed and Bomberman go really well together. And
Yep.
yeah, that's mine. Mine's more of a practical thing. I wasn't trying to impress anyone or to experience this other thing. I just needed more Bomberman in my life.
Right.
Yeah, that was it.
Sometimes that happens. I mean, I definitely remember back in the day, even in the 90s, some of my friends buying import games because it was buying the Dragon Ball fighting games for the Super Nintendo because it was I just love Dragon Ball so much. I got to play these games. And then it's sometimes they buy the ones they can't even, it's it's not a fighting game and it's an adventure game and they can't read it, but they're just it's so cool.
That's how I bought my first couple Sailor Moon titles.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read any Japanese. I didn't know what was going on. At least in the beat-em-ups, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But in the RPG, I don't know. It plays kind of like an episode, so I can kind of guess. But
Chris, back to Final Fantasy V for a second.
Really?
Really? No, can you play the game in full now, all in kanji, and understand it? You've played it so many times.
Oh, yeah, well, yes, probably just because I know I have played it so many times that when somebody says something, I'd be like, oh, that's what they're saying. Right, yeah. There was a point when I was living in Japan and I was studying Japanese every day. Technically, I knew 1,000 kanji. That's probably not the case anymore. It's been over 20 years since I first went to Japan, when I was studying there, and it's I don't live there anymore, and I'm not reading kanji every day, so yeah. And we have computers now, so when I do read Japanese, I can just sort of hover over the kanji, and it tells me what it says, and I'm like, oh, thank you.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are I want to learn Japanese to play RPGs, but one thing I've noticed trying to play any game in Japanese, because, personally, my Japanese is shit. So, but even still, anything that has some sort of mystical political storyline has really hard kanji.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So it makes it almost impossible.
Yeah. You can learn enough Japanese to muddle your way through them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what you can... That's possible. Otherwise, yeah, it's like some serious study for to do anything specialized vocabulary and stuff like that. Because they don't teach you, they don't teach you how to say like tree bark antidote or whatever when you take Japanese class. That's not even senior year. You're not going to get that.
I would personally like a Japanese course that is centered around RPGs.
Right. That's what they should do, because
smart,
especially, I mean, I can only really speak to being in Japanese classes in the late 90s, early 2000s. But I mean, I still think it probably is still a thing, right? Where you take Japanese class and there's the one kid in class who thinks that Japan is an anime, and they get into class and the teacher asks how are you today? And they're just like, Zeta yurusenai yo, or whatever. And they should just have a class for all those people, just to teach them just weeb Japanese. I think they'd pay double.
And then we bomb that class, and it's done. All problem solved.
Japanese class in high school was so all over the place because it was people who wanted to do businessy stuff, and probably people smarter than me. And then there was people like me. I was like, I like Sailor Moon and noodles,
Yeah.
It's great. I loved it. All right, that's perfect.
Sweet. One sec.
Sailor Moon and noodles.
So yeah, in about 45 minutes, that's when I'll have to hard stop and go and pick up the kids. So,
Got it.
So
All
I
right.
get the police called on me for being a deadbeat dad, basically.
We got it.
Okay.
We only technically have 2 categories left because we have main topic and then listener questions. And then
Great.
the outro takes 1 minute. So,
Okay.
all right. Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and now on to our main topic, and it is, of course, Japan. All the things about Japan we're going to go over: travel, game collecting, and, of course, the food. Because we can't talk about Japan without talking about that.
I want to say, just first off here, people are going to be people at the end of this podcast, people are going to be, so what? You go to Japan and literally all you do is buy video games and eat food? Yes.
And I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm proud
Very
of it. I've done I was a student there for years. I've seen a lot. I went to Nara. I saw the really big Buddha. You know what I mean? It's big. I've seen it. I go there for experiential, I go there, and my wife is on board with this too. The last time that we went to Japan together, we were just actually, the dollar was really good compared to the yen, so we were rich, and we just went there and just bought everything and ate all the food, and just had an absolute blast doing it. You out there in listener land, you know what I mean? You make your own Japan magic. But for me, I'm buying video games and eating. Sorry. Not sorry.
I mean, that's kind of the most fun thing I think about Japan is that, it kind of has something for everybody because it has a lot of, diverse aspects to it. If you want the more historical, you got it. There's a lot of it, You can, if you're into fashion and not video games at all, there's also going to be a ton for you. It's pretty awesome in that way.
Yeah.
And...
whatever. No, it's true. Whatever you're into,
Mm-hmm.
there's they got it in Japan. They have it in Japan. You can do, and it's gonna be some kind of a unique version of that experience in some way.
I actually think that Japan is one of the best countries for hobbies in general.
Totally.
I collect cameras and guitars. Turns out Japan's also fantastic for it. My wife buys vintage military clothing from all different countries. Turns out Japan is great for it. We don't know why, but Japan is great for hobbies just in general.
You
will lose all of your money.
I think there's certainly the bubble economy, right, in the 1980s, probably involved an explosion of people getting really deep into their hobbies because people had a ton of money to throw around, and so that meant that, so I think you just have that trailing effect of that huge explosion of varying hobbies, that it's all very well supported and stuff like that. So cameras, music. I mean, I have a friend who all he does is go to music stores when he goes to Japan.
And there's a lot of those, too.
A lot of those, too.
A lot.
Yep.
A lot.
A lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the first thing about going to Japan is getting there. And I know, at least from when I was younger and I hadn't been to Japan yet, everyone always told me that, like, oh, well, Japan's really expensive. It's expensive to get to Japan. But the more I've gone, the more I've realized it's not necessarily. Especially for flights and things like that. Like, the deals are totally out there. And you can pay a lot, but I think, at least for flights, the biggest thing is, being flexible on your dates and looking often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often see a lot of things.
Yeah.
Get onto the mailing lists of places that do flights to Japan because they're, I'm somehow on ANA's mailing list, and they're constantly just like, oh, there's a deal here, there's a deal there. Go at this time, go at that time. Fly into this airport. So for sure, like watch out for stuff like that. If you don't, so here's the thing. So many airlines fly to Japan, varying levels of quality. I always I always try to do either Japan Airlines or ANA. They are more expensive, so I mean, it's probably more for you if money is a little bit less of a concern. But I have to say, when I fly one of the two like Japan owned or Japan operated airlines, and also make sure if you're like booking like a Japan Airlines flight, make sure it says make sure it doesn't say like this is a share code flight operated by American Airlines, something like that.
Yep.
You want to make sure you're booking an actual Japan Air or ANA plane. Because quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, when you do that, don't discount that. Because the minute that you set foot on that airplane, even when it's on the ground in Chicago or wherever, Japan starts there. Yeah. Because the food on that airplane is going to be Japanese food, and it's actually going to be pretty high quality. The drinks on that airplane will be Japanese. There will be special airline exclusive, drinks, non-alcoholic as well, that they do. The entertainment on that flight will be there will be channels full of Japanese TV shows and movies, usually subtitled. So you can watch subtitled Japanese films that you might actually not be able to see otherwise. And it really does. And also just little things like the sort of communal spirit of when it's time to eat a meal, the stewardesses go and they make everybody put their seats up. So nobody's reclining their seat behind you when you're trying to eat the ANA food. It really does. You can start like immersing yourself in the Japan experience from the time you set foot on the plane, and I think that's worth a little money.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Actually, from when this episode comes out, my flight for Japan's just a few days after. And I got Japan Airlines.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. Because, the last couple times I went, I definitely tried to go on the budget side. But not too budgety, because there is that side sometimes. And it's still a long flight. But I have a lot of, miles and stuff with Delta. And Delta's not that bad for a long-haul flight. But it's no Japan Airlines.
Right.
And so for traveling around Japan, if you don't have a car, obviously, most people do not go to Japan and rent a car. That's not something that's normally done unless you want to go to the outskirts type places. But paying for, the train and especially the Shinkansen, all the time, because as a tourist, you're going to go fucking everywhere, That's you're on the train the whole time almost.
Yeah.
And what's really cool that Japan offers is a JR pass, depending on which region that you're going to, or some of them will, only be northern Japan or southern Japan. They have different passes that you can get. But for example, I bought the 7-day pass, and as long as I rode the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train, twice, the pass paid for itself, and basically every other train ride was free.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to do it. They have a ton of stuff, and a lot of cities have their own local bus passes, day passes and stuff like that. And you can go to the tourism counter, at Kyoto Station. They have the tourism counter, and you can buy day passes for buses as long as you have a foreign passport.
Yep.
And so
you know
there's a lot of,
why?
like, good tricks.
Because they don't. This is probably sort of true and sort of not true. I kind of think it's because they'll just sell the foreign visitors the day pass, so the foreign visitors do not have to deal with ticket prices or like going through the turnstile, because they will gum up the works. Because it's not like you just buy a ticket and get on the train. It's like you pay a certain amount of money based on what stop you're getting on at and what stop you're getting off at. So they're just like, here, just take this pass, just wave it and just get on the train, get off the train, do whatever. Just don't get in anybody's way, because things are going really,
That's a big thing for the JR Pass, too, because, like, if you go into a train station, you pay, like, on your way in, even if you don't get on a train.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So, like, if you get lost and you don't know what the hell you're doing and you go into a train station and you're like, oh, crap, this is the wrong one. Like, with your JR Pass, you didn't pay any money to get in. So it's really great for when you don't know what you're doing.
True. Another thing, once you know what you're doing, if you're not going to do the JR Pass thing, I mean, sometimes I'm just going to Tokyo, so I'm not actually riding the bullet train anywhere, so the JR Pass doesn't make as much sense. But get a Suica, or get I mean, Suica is the number one thing to get in Tokyo, basically. But it's just like an RFID card, and you can, I don't know if you can buy one before you go to Japan, but I mean, you can certainly get one as soon as you get there. You have your Ikoka, right?
Yeah, my Ikoka, yeah.
So you get one of these cards, and basically it's just, you just load it up with cash. You can literally just go to any of the ticket stations, put the card in, insert cash, and then it'll put it on the card, and then you're going in and out of the train very easily, and it'll just debit the card in the exact amount of the ticket. So that's a way to do it, paying exactly what you need to pay, but not having to fumble with change. Also, nobody sits there and fumbles with change in the machine. Just everybody has a Suica, and it's going to save you a lot of time and heartbreak, basically, just to do that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And the Suica card's really cool because you can use it at some, like, convenience stores.
Yep.
And, like, machines and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. And it's also, I think, a really good place to use if you just have, like, a massive pocket of change. And you're like, what the hell do I do with all this change?
Dump
you just
it all
put it all
in.
on your Suica card.
You do have, that is true. You do have, that's right. I mean, you don't have to take it to the bank or anything. Just put it on the Suica. And that may happen to you because, especially if you live in America right now, I may have to tell you, when you get to Japan, you have to switch your mentality, and you have to remember to spend your coins, because I like a lot of people in America, they like let their pocket fill up with change and then they dump it all. But like in Japan, the first bill is essentially the equivalent of a $10 bill. So I mean, for things that are $1, $5, roughly 100 yen, 500 yen, it's coins. So you do have to remember to like actually get your coins out and spend them, or you will accumulate a big pocket full of unwieldy change very quickly.
Yep.
That is great
what are you going to
advice.
spend that change on? It's called video games.
Video games.
Video games. and beer.
Do you guys have favorite places to buy video games in Japan? That's a big question. But.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, okay. So, obviously, Akihabara, right, in the neighborhood in Tokyo is and has been, the sort of epicenter of buying old video games. What I would suggest is, well, first of all, okay, so everybody knows about Super Potato. Everybody knows about Super Potato because back in the day, well, back in like, mid-2000s, Super Potato, they opened up in Tokyo. They had been an Osaka mainstay for a while. And the difference between Super Potato and every other store in Akihabara is that every other store in Akihabara, if you tried to take out a camera and take a picture of something, they would immediately jump in front of you and say, don't take pictures of our store. Now, a lot of that, it's not really the store, it's about privacy, because, in Japan, your hobbies are considered to be private, and that's why so many stores, like the windows are blacked out and stuff like that, because of the the deep shame of going into a video game store and buying all these old video games. And they protect the privacy of their customers, which is a good thing. They don't want people getting caught on camera when they're doing something that is private, buying their hobby stuff. Super Potato was like, we would go in there, we were doing Retronauts, and we're doing videos for oneup.com, and they would let us literally just go in there and shoot a whole episode of the show without even asking. Like, we'd literally just, we would do stand-ups in there, with a microphone, and like, I'm here at Super Potato, blah, 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 and they're just like, great, do it. Oh, guess what? Super Potato got extremely popular with foreign visitors because it was the only store they'd ever heard of. They also have really nice decorations and stuff like that, but it became hugely popular. It is now the place that, like, everybody goes to. Everybody who's never been to Japan, it's like, oh, I gotta make the pilgrimage to Super Potato. Their prices are really high. Not because they're trying to fleece anybody, but because the demand is so high for stuff there that, like, they have to sell things at, like, almost double price sometimes just to keep them on the shelf. So go there because there might be bargains there. You know, what did we walk in? Walked in right before they closed, and they had put out like a brick of untested Famicom games that they wrapped up in plastic, and they put like what is it, like $2?
It was like it was like 200 yen or something like that. And we went back to the hotel and like opened it all up and like, what do we have, you know? And there was well over obviously $2 worth of games in there, and they weren't all baseball and they weren't all mahjong.
Yes. So don't skip Super Potato for bargain hunting, but don't buy the expensive stuff there necessarily until you've looked around. What are the good, and also some of the stores that are, again, like there's a place called Retro Game Camp. There's actually one on either side of the main street. I've bought stuff there, but they can also be pretty expensive too because they're big, just like Super Potato, really nice decorations. You know, they're there for the tourists. The stuff so best stores. Mandarake, the 6th floor of Mandarake, which is a huge black tower in Akihabara. They have really expensive stuff there, but they're super anal about condition, which means that they will also mark stuff down a lot if it has a little bit of condition problems. And I've gotten some really good stuff there, actually very cheaply, like much cheaper than eBay, because somebody looked at it and was like, oh, that box is a C. And that box is mint. Yep. Like I'm not seeing what they're seeing for a C. And so Mandarake, 6th floor of Mandarake is great. Also, make sure to go to the toy floor of Mandarake because there's video game toys in there as well. I've gotten some old Nintendo, like old pre-NES Nintendo hardware there. A Nintendo Duck Hunt machine I got at Mandarake. Again, pretty cheap because they were like, we don't know if it works. We're not testing it. We want it out of here. Like, that often happens a lot. Japan is small. It's very, very small. And so they're just like, this takes up a lot of space. Get it out. Get it out of the country.
At Mandarake, I got that garbage bag full of Pokemon figures.
Yes, you did. Oh, that was the best. we go into Mandarake. We see this massive, right? Huge bag full of Pokemon figures. And it's like, it was marked at like 28,000. It was roughly $300 or a little bit less than that. But it was a massive bag of these little the old 90s Pokemon figures. And it was like, oh, that's cool. And then we go to dinner and I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm like, man, I gotta say, like, that Pokemon bag, like, that might actually, I mean, if you figure there's probably, like 600 figures in there, and it's like 50 cents a figure, and it's like, if they sell for like $5 each or something like that, it's like it almost kind of makes sense to get the bag full of Then I leave Japan, or the next day, like because our trips overlap by a day. And the next day, you're like, I bought the bag of Pokemon. And I'm like, oh, Christ, that didn't mean you should actually do it.
But, I bought it. There was
700
and something Pokemon in there. It was horrible to get home, but...
You had them flowing out of your luggage, right?
Yeah, I had to open the bag and make them like packing peanuts with all of my bags in order to get them to fit. And it was a nightmare. And I was hungover as shit. And there's like Pokemon falling out of my pockets, and I have sunglasses on, and I'm just crying. Like... It was great.
And you're like going through security, don't check my bag.
When I finally got to security, they were like, oh, your bag's overweight. And I started crying, and she was like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Because I was like, the day I just had getting here. You know?
Right.
Like, it was great.
But the math worked out on the Pokemon, right?
Oh, yeah. It actually ended up paying for my whole trip.
Holy shit.
Yeah, because I sold them at PRGE for like $3 each or 2 for $5, and they were a hit. People love digging through 700 Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. So
awesome.
so far, best thing ever bought in Japan.
that's
700
pretty cool.
Pokemon.
100%. And so I'll say my favorite place for buying video games because Akihabara is amazing. I know a lot of people are kind of cynical on Akihabara and say don't go there, it's overpriced, whatever. I think it's 100% worth going, and there's still deals there. Like I mean, look at those Pokemon. It was great. Like, I bought so much stuff up there. It was still fantastic. But in Osaka, there's also Den Town over by Namba in Osaka, and that is kind of like their little baby Akihabara. Like, it's not as like big and flashy with big gigantic anime girls on the sides of all the buildings, but it has a lot of the same stores and everything's a little bit cheaper. And personally, Osaka is my favorite city in Japan, so I'm a little biased, but that's definitely my favorite place to shop.
Yeah, Denden Town's awesome. I think it's it's really tiny though. Like I think you should really lower people's expectations of seeing dozens of stores because there's not. There's
it's
very
pretty
few.
Small, yeah.
But I do like that place quite a bit.
Yeah,
I guess I'll jump in and say you're both wrong. It's hard off. Like
yeah,
like
true.
Especially the ones.
You talk about hard off, and then I'll talk about why that might not be the best for everybody.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, but for those that don't know, hard off is like a used electronics store, and typically they're not in the heart of cities. They're like a little bit further out, so they're a pain in the ass to get to. But with that pain in the ass comes much cheaper prices, like across the board. Like I bought a box copy of Rescue Rangers for 2,000 yen a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know what that goes for, but I just know that I think I got a good deal.
It's more than that, yeah.
And like I knew right away, like this is probably a good thing, and so I mean, for me living in Japan, it's easily the best place because like it also gives me something to do, and I get to go out and go to a hard off that's like 30 minutes away. But go ahead, Chris. Tell me why it's a horrible place.
Yeah, the worst. No, only that. So you're absolutely correct. And there's a guy on Twitter. I don't know if you follow this guy named Taji on Twitter, but he is called @HardOffDiary. He just goes to far-flung hard offs in Japan and just like posts the video games that he finds there for really good deals. And it's like it's fascinating because I'm so jealous. And you're right. I think the issue is if you're living in Japan, that's great. If you go to Japan and you know Japan and you sort of like I'm gonna do a hard off trip where I just like go to every hard off that I can. Also good. I think if it's your first time there, or if you're there with a group of people, or if you're there with a family or whatever it is, it's because they're in far-flung locations, it can suck up a whole lot of your like week that you're in Japan to go to one, and then the one, it might have some cool stuff, but it might not have like what you're actually looking for. It might not have anything.
Yeah, I mean,
or what you're looking for.
Yeah, it is a total crapshoot.
Yep. But if you're in Japan and you're walking around and you pass by a book off or a hard off or a hobby off, and you're after some stuff, you should go in and look, because the benefit of places that don't specialize in video games, just like anywhere in the world, is that you could catch a deal. And there's, I mean, even the last time I was there, I was getting really good deals at the book off that's in Ikebukuro, just because like, it's not a video game store. It's in the heart of Tokyo. It's in a major shopping district. A lot of the book so there was like a year when book offs in Tokyo went from all our games are 500 yen if they're older than like PS2 to we look up everything. And so like prices exploded for older stuff there, but like every now and again you will go in and you will find like stuff where somebody was just like, I don't know what this is, I'm gonna pay you 5 yen for it and sell it for 100 yen, so yeah, I mean, pop in and do it, but it can be tough. It depends on what you're in Japan for and what else you got to do.
Yep.
Akihabara
and always check out the junk floor. It's my favorite.
Always. Yeah. Or
Easily
the big blue junk boxes and stuff like that. Because junk generally doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means we've got too much stuff to deal with. We're just going to take this and we're just going to slap a price sticker on it and sell it with no refund because we just can't test all this stuff.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Junk is the best section. That's why I go to those stores, because it's
Right.
I mean, they don't know if it works. They don't care if it works. It's just, here it is. And I've gotten fantastic deals in the junk section.
Yep.
Including some weird NES type game for Frank Cifaldi. He sent me off to some
Oh, I remember
random-
this.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
sent me off to some
Yeah.
really distant hard off, and it was in the junk section. It was like 6,000 yen. They didn't know if it worked. They didn't test it, and it turned out it worked. I don't know what it was. I think it was a mahjong game, but
Yep.
Yep.
This stuff
I think-
generally works. If something is actually like dirty and disgusting and clearly broken, they simply won't take it in. You know what I mean? Junk is more like we just didn't test it. I mean, generally, it's if it looks clean and good. Also, I mean, some hard offs you can test stuff.
Yep.
Like they have a testing center all set up. You can just go test it if you want to.
love it. So I was right, is what you're saying? All right.
Yeah. I mean, basically, like hard off is great. Like, actually, there's one when I go to Tokyo Game Show. There's a book. It's not a hard off, but it's a book off super bazaar in near Makuhari Messe. If you like get off the train and walk the other direction for about half a mile or so, you get to a massive book off super bazaar, which is essentially like a hard off. And it's got the big junk section and everything. And I always go to that. I always take the opportunity and go if I'm near one.
And of course, the moment everyone's been waiting for, mostly me because I'm also hungry and I really like talking about food when I'm hungry. It's Japanese food.
Yay.
It's the number 2 reason why we traveled to Japan.
Oh my God.
It's so amazing. So I want to start with, what is your guys' do you have this one meal that you still think about from Japan? Because I know that I do. And actually Chris took me there.
Oh,
and
is that it?
I've never been able to like remember what this place is called. So actually this is the perfect opportunity.
Was it called
That-
was it called Ichi-Nisan? Was that the name of it?
It might be because I don't remember it at all.
I remember
but
where
it
it
was
is.
the
Beef
steaks.
katsu. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh god, I have dreams. I have dreams about that.
It was we waited in line for a long time to do this, and they tried to get us to go to a different place, but I was like, no, this is the good place. We got to stay in line. And we stayed in line. It wasn't that bad. I mean, the line was great. We were just hanging out and talking, it was fine.
Yeah, it was great.
And yeah, it's like they take an amazing piece of Japanese beef and they deep fry it just very lightly, slice it up for you so it's a perfect medium rare on the plate, and then you get some like wasabi and sauce and stuff like that, and it's just phenomenal. It was so good.
It was heaven.
I remember a lot of
actually-
food I've eaten in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny that beef katsu that we had. My friend who was with us
Yeah.
was actually a vegetarian, but she sort of gave up on this trip. Like, so she had already eaten pork, but she had that steak, and she
Yeah.
was like, Kinsey, I don't think I can be a vegetarian anymore.
Oh my
This
gosh.
It was like mind blowing to her. It was so.
Yeah, that place was ridiculous. And that was in Akihabara, so that was after a long day of a long day of shopping. And we went to the Hitachi no Nest brewery, which was also literally in Akihabara
damn.
as well. So I mean, if anyone has ever listened to me on literally any podcast ever, whether or not the subject was food or not, I probably worked in a mention of the fact that my favorite food is Japanese curry rice. I eat it all the time in Japan. I probably eat it every day in Japan. Not just because some people are like, oh yeah, kokuichi banya. It's like, I actually don't eat there anymore when I go to Japan, because they have them in Irvine, California, in Southern California now. And B, because my eyes have been opened to this incredibly wide world of all of the different curry. I mean, it's like there are as many types of Japanese curry as there are fish in the sea. It's a week in Japan is not long enough to enjoy them all. But I love doing that as well. My wife had to institute a rule where we could only go to one like curry only place per day. That doesn't mean that I can't eat curry every meal.
Right.
It's just it means that she gets to pick the other restaurant. If they have curry, I can and will get it. It helps that I actually don't eat sushi, I guess. Which, I mean, there's tremendous. I assume there's great sushi in Japan, probably.
Tight. That's I love that you don't eat sushi. That made this whole thing even better.
Now, if you were to take me to a nice sushi restaurant, I would eat it because probably the really, really good stuff I can appreciate and enjoy it. But I don't like it to the extent that I would not like hunt it down or like eat it multiple times or anything like that. Like I would never suggest it because it's just not my thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Well, Kinsey, you can probably talk too about convenience stores.
Mm-hmm. And convenience stores are also I think the best like budget tip if you're traveling on a budget as well, because they have so many like prepared meals there that everything I've had has been really good. I'm sure there's a few stinkers, but like everything that I've had that's like prepared food at a convenience store has been amazing. Like I ate breakfast there every single day when I was in Japan, and I didn't get sick of it. And I don't think I will once I move.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, like when... So it is, and it can be expensive to get to Japan, especially if you're like, inflexible with the travel, things like that.
Yeah.
But when people say Japan is expensive, it's like, that's actually a lie. Japan can be expensive if you want it to be. It can also be incredibly cheap. There are hotels that are so inexpensive. And the thing is, like, so many of the hotels, even the cheapest hotels, don't stay at a youth hostel if you don't, if you enjoy your privacy, but like, or if you're going to buy a lot of video games, but like the hotels can be so inexpensive and they're really nice and extremely convenient to the trains. You know what I mean? Like you can get a great hotel that's right on the train, super cheap. And then the food you can eat for $20 a day, the most delicious food you've ever had in your life. It never has to be expensive.
Yep. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Japan, and I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about traveling to Japan.
Yep.
Like, any city can be expensive if you want it to be, but Japan specifically can be really cheap. Like, it's hard to be, like, I'm from Seattle. I don't think you can eat $20, like, worth a day, even fast food. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yep. You can eat for $20 a day. You can sleep for under $100 a night in a nice, clean hotel. You can travel on the train for a couple of bucks, to wherever it is you want to go. And you can do that extremely cheaply, and then you take all the money that you didn't spend on food, travel, lodging, and spend it all on video games.
Exactly. Mark, do you have a favorite meal?
No, I think you guys just did it. I mean, it is curry. It's like absolutely. And also,
all right. Yes. There we go.
That's like I love sushi, and Chris, that's a shame that you don't. But no, curry. Like, I think half the people here at our studio, like everyone would say curry, and most of us eat from the konbini every single day. Both of these answers are correct. You guys won.
God, I love Japanese curry. My stamp card is almost full, too, at Hinoya Curry. So nice. I got to go back up there and get my free one.
I can't. So obviously it's been challenging to like not be able to go to Japan for a while, and looking at a future in which I might not be able to go, again until really things like, till like the kids get vaccinated, whatever. Like a lot of stuff kind of has to happen, and it has to open back up again. There can't be a quarantine. Like I can't take my family there and then like quarantine for 3 days. Like this got to all be over. It's got to be fully over. One of the things that has really helped, buying retro video games on eBay has helped, but then also we got, like in the middle of the pandemic, Hinoya Curry opened up a U.S. branch right here.
I saw that.
In San Francisco. And Hinoya Curry, that's of the curry chain curries, like that is my number one absolute favorite. And don't take my word for it. They won the Japan Curry Grand Prize in 2013.
No big deal.
They were voted the best curry in actual Japan. And so there's a U.S. branch now. They're opening up more in the Bay Area as well. They get their bricks from Japan. They get a lot of stuff from Japan, and they finish it out with local ingredients, and it is spot on, fantastic. Best curry in Japan is now in America. So if you're in the Bay Area or you come out here, Hinoya Curry, definitely get it.
And with that, we're actually going to cruise right on into Call Me Up listener questions, because the question we have this episode is about food, so it fits in perfectly. And if you ever want to ask us a question, just head on over to our Discord, go to the Call Me Up channel, and ask your questions. All right. Our question for this episode is from Steven, our wonderful mod. Thank you for all that you do. And it's favorite onigiri flavors. And what do you get if they happen to be out of that one?
Tuna mayo. Great. Continue.
Yeah, usually, you know what? I usually don't get onigiri. I'm sorry.
I've gotten it a few times. Onigiri aren't my favorite. I do like tuna mayo, but I've seen this white whale onigiri that I have like sent pictures of to people who live in Japan, and they haven't had it yet. It's like one that has prosciutto on the outside.
Ooh. Oh, right.
And I'm like, oh, fuck me. That's the one. I've never even had it, and I know that's going to be my favorite.
I want something weird. I want, if you gun to my head, you sent me to a convenience store, which Mark has done in the past.
Of course.
And I had to, and I had to pick out an onigiri. I would probably look for like the weirdest possible thing, and try, like if somebody in Japan wanted to make like a peanut butter and jelly, onigiri or something like that, just something ridiculous, I would eat it for science.
Ooh,
I was like, that kind of sounds good.
That does. Like, that could actually work.
See?
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Not only is it going to happen because Japan never does things half-assed, somebody will do it. It'll become incredibly popular. Then there'll be 100 of them. There'll be the peanut butter and jelly onigiri wars between all of the convenience stores. It'll become a huge thing. People will die.
People will die.
Love it. Next question. Do you like curry pan? And if you don't, who hurt you?
Obviously, I love curry pan.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess we did just finish talking
what?
about like how much we love curry and add bread to it. You know what? That's great. Thank you.
Let's use this to quickly mention also that, okay, all right, fine. I don't eat curry for breakfast in Japan unless it's karepan, which I do eat a lot. So technically, yes, I do eat curry for breakfast. But the point is, leave me alone. These are my choices. The bakeries in Japan, like the bakeries in the world, I would have to guess. I've only ever been to a couple other countries besides America, but I would rank them like this: France, Japan, and then like everything else underneath that. And Japan is probably competing with France for like best bakeries, in terms of like best croissants in the morning, things like that. Like the bakeries are all over Japan, and they can be incredibly, ridiculously delicious.
10 out of 10. Even around our studio, there are, I want to say there's 5 bakeries within a 100-meter radius. Yeah. And any one of those, you're going to get the best bread. Like,
yep.
I'm
still
insane. Looking for good baguette though. Like you can't get good baguette at every shop. So, but that said, you are absolutely right on the France, and then Japan's just right below it.
Nasty Labs.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much to Chris for joining us. I have been wanting to do a Japan-only episode for a very long time. You were the perfect guest. Thank you so much. And where can people find you on the internet?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for talking so much. I get very excited. I'm just so happy to see you both, and I just run off at the mouth about all of this stuff. I figure you guys, you know what? If you want to do a podcast without me, just go ahead and then say all the things that you wanted to say. So find me on. I'm on. Basically, I just use Twitter. It's Kobun Heat. KOBUNHEAT is my Twitter handle. Where you can find out what it is that I'm doing at any stage of my life. Basically, that's how you can come find me. I have that book, Final Fantasy V from Boss Fight Books. That's about Japan, in some ways. And
Your other book.
Oh, I wrote a book called Power Up back in 2004 when I was very young. And there's a new edition of it from Dover Publications. It's still called Power Up. It was basically like it was the first book written about Japanese video games specifically, in English. And so I saw a review of it recently that was like, yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff in here, but it was all stuff that I already knew. And it was like, you already knew all this stuff because the book came out in 2004, and that's where everybody learned all this stuff.
For sure.
You jerk.
There wasn't Wikipedia in the same way
like,
there is now.
It's like reading Shakespeare and being like, these plots are so formulaic, I knew it was going to happen. Yes, I compared myself to Shakespeare.
Well, I own both of your books. Thank you very much. And I
Thank
read.
you, Mark. Thank you.
And I thought it was still relevant. I mean, I could see the time gap. I mean, I'm not a dumbass. Like, well, do you have any other books on the horizon that we can talk about?
I do want to keep writing books, especially because, again, especially because I'm not doing daily writing anymore and things like that. So books definitely allow me, a creative outlet that I much appreciate. So stay tuned. I have ideas. I got ideas.
Yeah.
Hell yeah! And you can find me at the Henry Demos on Twitter.
You can find me at Kinsilla, Kinscilla, on pretty much everything, although I mostly also only use Twitter, but I'm at the other places. And of course, you can follow Chuhai Labs at Chuhai Labs on all the things.
Hell
so,
yeah.
as always, a big thank you to the Greenlit Podcast Network, and thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and Happy New Year.
That almost sounded like a barbershop harmony. We were doing.
Do it. Bye.
I was like, did I Bye.
Hey, that was a 3-part harmony. That was
Great.
That was fucking
Take that on
tight.
tour.